every Moai statue is essentially a gravestone, but with a twist.
Beneath the windswept silence of Easter Island, where the stoic Moai have stared toward the horizon for centuries, something ancient has finally stirred. For generations, these colossal stone faces have been the island's greatest mystery, but it turns out they were only guarding a deeper secret. Recently, archaeologists digging beneath the volcanic soil uncovered something that defies logic, rewriting everything we thought we knew about the island's origins and the people who built its monuments. This isn't just another artifact or burial site, it's a discovery that hints at a forgotten chapter of human history, one hidden right under the feet of those legendary statues. What they found beneath Easter Island will make you question how much of the past we've truly unearthed. Join us as we uncover their long-kept secrets. For centuries, Easter Island, also known as Rapa Nui to its native people, has existed as both an archaeological riddle and a cultural icon. It stands as one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth, rising from the middle of the Pacific Ocean, more than 2,000 miles from the nearest continental shore. Yet, from that isolation came one of humanity's most recognizable legacies, known as the Moai, nearly 1,000 monumental stone statues with elongated faces, deep-set eyes, and silent gazes fixed toward the island's interior. For generations, the prevailing story of Rapa Nui was one of mystery and tragedy. Historians told of a thriving society that descended into chaos after deforesting its land to move the Moai, a testament of human hubris destroying its environment. This tidy narrative found its way into textbooks, documentaries, and popular culture. The Moai became frozen symbols of a society that supposedly collapsed under its own ambition. Now, modern research is rewriting that tale. Archaeologists equipped with satellite imaging, LiDAR scanning, and advanced ground-penetrating radar are uncovering new truths beneath the island's windswept terrain. The story emerging today is not of simple collapse, but of complexity, resilience, and startling new discoveries. Beneath the familiar statues and volcanic slopes, the Earth itself has begun to whisper secrets that had lain undisturbed for centuries. Recent excavations and environmental changes have revealed that the island's mysteries are far from solved. In fact, the greatest surprises were not standing in plain sight, but buried under layers of soil, stone, and time. What was once considered a static monument field is now a living archaeological landscape, an open book still writing its own chapters. The new Moai in the lake. In 2023, a dry season unlike any in recent memory transformed the landscape of Easter Island. The crater lake inside Rano Raraku, the volcanic quarry where most of the Moai were originally carved, began to recede under the unrelenting sun. For generations, that lake had been a mirror of reeds, mud, and silence, a natural veil concealing whatever lay below. Now, as the waterline shrank, something extraordinary that no one ever considered emerged. It was the top of a Moai's head, peeking out from the dried sediment. At first, archaeologists thought it might be a trick of erosion, a natural rock shaped by coincidence. But as excavation teams from the Mauhenua indigenous community and collaborating scientists began to clear away the compacted earth, the familiar contours became undeniable. This was a carved face, symmetrical and deliberate, complete with the distinctive elongated nose and angular jaw of a Moai. It measured roughly 1.6 meters tall, which meant that this new statue was significantly smaller than the island's iconic giants, some of which tower over 10 meters high. Yet, its location made it a revelation. Never before had a Moai been found inside the crater lake. The Rano Raraku quarry was well documented. Archaeologists had catalogued hundreds of unfinished or partially buried statues scattered across its slopes, but the lakebed itself was thought to contain nothing but centuries of sediment. This discovery proved otherwise. Terry Hunt, one of the leading archaeologists specializing in Rapa Nui, called the find an incredible gift from nature, noting that the drying of the lake created a once-in-a-lifetime window into a previously inaccessible area. The presence of even one Moai in that environment suggested that others might lie hidden beneath the mud, perhaps entire generations of statues potentially forgotten by both time and oral tradition. What stunned local researchers even more was the reaction of Rapa Nui elders. According to Salvador Atan Hito, vice president of the Mau Henua community, even the oldest oral histories contained no mention of a statue beneath the lake. He explained to the media, stating, "Even our ancestors did not know this existed. It's as if the island is revealing something it wanted to keep for itself." The discovery raised profound questions. Why would a moai be placed in the lake? Was it intentionally submerged as part of a ritual offering? Or was it abandoned before completion and later swallowed by rising waters? Could this be a rare symbol connected to fertility or purification, both of which held deep spiritual meaning for the Rapa Nui? Soil analysis provided a few early clues. Core samples taken from around the statue revealed layers of volcanic ash mixed with ancient plant matter, hinting that the area might once have been drier, perhaps even walkable before centuries of water accumulation. That would mean the statue could have been carved or positioned when the crater was still a dry basin. Later, environmental changes could have drowned it, preserving it like a time capsule in the mud. For scientists, the implications are staggering. The find expanded the known geographic reach of the Moai tradition beyond the quarry's slopes and ceremonial platforms into an unexpected environment of water and sediment. If this single moai could remain hidden for centuries beneath a lake, how many more might still sleep under the soil elsewhere on the island? Satellite imagery and radar scans taken after the discovery have already revealed anomalous shapes beneath the surface of the same lake, faint echoes that could represent buried stones, collapsed statues, or carved fragments yet to be unearthed. Excavation is slow, deliberate, and often hindered by preservation concerns. But one thing is certain here: the Rano Raraku crater lake is no longer seen as empty space. It's a crypt of stone giants, long forgotten. To archaeologists and islanders alike, this single statue was not just another artefact. It was a messenger from the deep past, reminding the world that Easter Island still holds secrets it's not yet ready to give up. Beneath the surface of buried moai and hidden chambers, the surprise emergence of the Crater Lake Moai sparked a surge of curiosity among archaeologists and local researchers alike. If one statue had been hidden in plain sight for centuries, what else might be slumbering beneath Easter Island's rugged terrain? That question set off a new wave of exploration, this time not with just shovels and brushes, but with satellites, sensors, and radar. Over the past decade, archaeology has become increasingly less about digging and more about seeing through the earth. In Rapa Nui, this technological shift has been transformative. Teams from Chilean and international universities have deployed ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, magnetometers, and LIDAR mapping to scan beneath the volcanic crust. These instruments send electromagnetic pulses deep into the soil, creating high-resolution images of what lies below without disturbing the ground. The results have been nothing short of astonishing. Beneath areas once dismissed as barren, scientists are now finding anomalous stone densities and geometric voids, which are signatures consistent with carved objects or buried chambers. In several locations near the Rano Raraku quarry, radar imagery has revealed long vertical shapes resembling the buried torsos of moai, extending meters below the surface. This shouldn't have been entirely unexpected, as many of the moai visible today, especially those partially buried, actually possess full torsos and engraved petroglyphs below ground. Early excavations in the 20th century showed that what most people thought were heads sticking out of the earth were, in fact, complete statues, with their lower halves entombed in centuries of sediment. Now, the latest scans suggest the phenomenon might be far more widespread than previously believed, since hundreds of statues could still lie completely buried, perhaps toppled or intentionally covered during ritual phases or environmental shifts. Some of the newly detected subsurface forms do not match known statue dimensions at all. Instead, they resemble rectangular cavities, which could potentially be ancient storage spaces, ritual chambers, or stone cutting pits. This has led a few researchers to entertain the possibility of underground ceremonial sites hidden beneath the island's slopes. Though no such chamber has yet been excavated, the radar signatures bear intriguing symmetry and alignment, suggesting deliberate human design. Adding to the mystery, sediment cores taken from certain highland areas have yielded microscopic traces of pigments and burnt wood, materials commonly associated with ritual activity. These could represent the remnants of underground offerings, or perhaps fire-based ceremonies conducted within sealed enclosures. The evidence is too early to draw firm conclusions, but the idea that the Rapa Nui people interacted with the underworld both spiritually and architecturally is gaining traction. Some anthropologists link this emerging hypothesis to Polynesian cosmology, where the world is divided between the upper realm of light and the underworld of ancestors. In that belief system, burial and concealment are not acts of abandonment, but of reverence. The Moai themselves, representing deified ancestors, may have been deliberately interred to return them to the earth, closing a spiritual cycle of life, death, and memory. If this is true, the buried statues of Rapa Nui aren't lost at all, but were originally meant to be hidden. However, not everyone agrees with the spiritual interpretation. Some archaeologists argue that the buried Moai were victims of practical necessity due to environmental change, soil erosion, and centuries of rain slowly engulfing the statues until only their heads remained visible. In that sense, the earth wasn't a sacred crypt, but a relentless geological force, reclaiming the stone over time. Still, even skeptics acknowledge the importance of what lies underground. The subsurface zones have remained untouched for centuries, acting as time capsules of organic and cultural material. Soil chemistry studies have found traces of ancient pollen, charcoal, and tool fragments sealed around buried statues, giving scientists unprecedented insight into how and when these monuments were carved and moved. For decades, Easter Island's mysteries have been studied from above as the towering silhouettes against the Pacific horizon, the watchful stone eyes gazing inland. Now, the greatest revelations seem destined to come from below. The island's true history might be underground, encoded in the layers of ash, rock, and soil that have quietly preserved an older, more intricate civilization than anyone ever imagined. As excavations and scans continue to probe deeper, archaeologists are realizing something profound about Easter Island's landscape. It is not just an open-air museum, it is a buried metropolis of memory, one that is slowly, reluctantly, revealing itself. Rethinking isolation with Easter Island as a cultural hub. For most of the last century, Easter Island's story has been told through the lens of isolation. To historians and archaeologists alike, Rapa Nui was the end of the line, the final Polynesian outpost, settled by a courageous few who ventured farther east than any of their Pacific ancestors. Cut off by thousands of miles of ocean, the island was long believed to have evolved in near total solitude, its culture flowering and collapsing without external contact. The latest research is dismantling that image of lonely seclusion. What new studies suggest is that Rapa Nui was not a silent cul-de-sac of civilization, but rather a vibrant node in a network of oceanic exchange, influencing and being influenced by other Polynesian societies spread across the Pacific. The discovery of hidden Moai beneath the island's surface is just one layer of that larger revelation that Easter Island was connected economically, ritually, and intellectually to a world far wider than we imagined. The isolationist narrative was convenient. It offered a neat explanation for both the island's wonders and its supposed downfall. It's envisioned as a society too remote to trade, too insular to adapt, collapsing under its own ambition. This interpretation was reinforced by the island's geography, being 2,000 miles from Chile, 1,300 miles from the nearest Polynesian island, and by the European accounts that described a population reduced and fragmented by the 18th century. Yet the story was missing something. The assumption that no one could have maintained long-distance contact across the Pacific underestimated Polynesian seafaring mastery. These were the same people who settled nearly every inhabitable island across an ocean larger than all the continents combined, guided only by stars, waves, and oral maps of the sea. Recent archaeological comparisons between Rapa Nui and other Polynesian islands, including Tahiti, the Marquesas, and Mangareva, have revealed striking parallels in temple design, tool patterns, and ceremonial architecture. A 2024 study from Uppsala University proposed that the island's ahu, which are the stone ceremonial platforms that often hold moai, share stylistic and structural similarities with earlier religious sites found thousands of miles away. What's more, radiocarbon dating suggests that some of Easter Island's earliest ritual complexes may precede their counterparts elsewhere, hinting that Rapa Nui could have exported ritual forms rather than merely adopting them. In other words, the island might have been a source of innovation in Polynesian religion, not the last outpost, but a creative hub at the far edge of the known world. If confirmed, this would shake one of the longest-standing assumptions in Pacific archaeology that cultural influence always flowed from west to east. Instead, Easter Island may have participated in a two-way conversation across the waves, sharing ideas, artistic motifs, and spiritual concepts that traveled along the same sea routes its settlers once sailed. This looks like a far stretch of an idea, but there is some evidence to support the thought process. The DNA trail and linguistic links. Genetic research is now backing up this reimagined history. Studies of ancient DNA extracted from skeletal remains on Rapa Nui have shown faint but measurable traces of contact with both South American and other Polynesian populations. While the South American connection remains controversial, possibly the result of a few voyaging exchanges rather than sustained contact, it indicates that Easter Island was not as cut off as the old myths claimed. Linguistic analyses, too, suggest subtle borrowings between the Rapa Nui language and those of other Polynesian islands, especially Mangariva and the Marquesas. Certain religious terms, construction methods, and carving styles seem to share common roots, implying ongoing communication, even if infrequent. While Rapa Nui lacked major natural resources for export, such as obsidian or large timber, it did possess something equally valuable, which was its symbolic capital. The Moai themselves were not commodities, but their construction demonstrated a mastery of engineering and devotion that would have carried prestige across the Pacific. The sharing of ideas was a kind of cultural trade that needed no ships of goods, only ships of thought. Even more compelling are recent finds of non-native materials in archaeological layers. A few stone tools discovered on the island appear to have been made from basalt not found on Rapa Nui, possibly originating from Pitcairn or Mangariva. Though the evidence is sparse, it points toward at least occasional exchange voyages, which is enough to keep the island tethered, however loosely, to its wider Polynesian family. When seen in this light, Rapa Nui's so-called collapse begins to look less like an isolated implosion and more like a process of transformation shaped by both internal adaptation and external pressures. Rather than withdrawing into isolation, the island's people may have continuously recalibrated their social systems, maintaining distant connections even as resources dwindled. The walking statues and how they may have moved. For centuries, the Moai have stood as the ultimate riddle in stone, carved with serene expressions and impossible symmetry, scattered across an island with no trees tall enough and no beasts strong enough to move them. Each statue can weigh anywhere from 10 to over 80 tons, with some unfinished giants in the quarries estimated at more than 160 tons. Theories have come and gone, ranging from wild guesses about alien technology to more grounded ideas involving wooden rollers, sledges, or ropes. But over time, archaeologists and engineers began to realize something extraordinary. Could the statues have walked? Rapa Nui oral tradition holds an old story about the Moai that they walked to their places with the help of spiritual power known as mana. To Western ears, this sounded like mythic poetry, the kind of tale ancient peoples told to explain the unexplainable. In the 80s, anthropologist Terry Hunt and archaeologist Carl Lipo began to reconsider this legend, not as superstition, but as an encoded memory of practical engineering. They theorized that the statue's design itself, with their forward-leaning stance, heavy bellies, and flat bases, wasn't an accident of art. It was a feature of motion. Then, in 2012, they constructed a full-scale replica of a Moai using traditional materials and techniques. Then, with 3 teams of workers pulling ropes attached to either side and behind the statue, they began to rocket forward, gently tilting and pivoting it from side to side. To everyone's astonishment, the Moai moved upright, inching forward step by step, as if taking deliberate strides. The experiment proved that the statues could indeed have been walked to their destinations using only human strength, gravity, and careful coordination. This discovery transformed one of the great mysteries of archaeology into a triumph of indigenous engineering. The walking method required no massive timber rollers or external beasts of burden. Instead, it depended on physics and on the incredible cooperation of dozens of islanders who would have synchronized every pull like a chant. In essence, the Moai were balanced sculptures designed to move under their own shape. Each Moai was carved from volcanic tuff in the Rano Raraku quarry, then carefully shaped to ensure the right weight distribution for its intended path. Archaeologists have found that statues destined for coastal platforms have subtle variations in design with slightly different center of gravity placements to optimize movement along certain slopes. This suggests an advanced understanding of geometry and load dynamics, remarkable for a society without metal tools or the wheel. Contrary to popular belief, this technology did not devastate the island's ecology as drastically as once. Thought the long-standing theory that Rapa Nui's forests were destroyed to move the Moai is being challenged. Instead, pollen studies reveal a more gradual deforestation process, one tied to climate change and agriculture, not a single reckless act of statue transport. What do you think of these new findings? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video drops.